Hello. I'll I'll just do a chat by I'll just use Menti polls. So I've just created polls on that, so no issue. Like this should work fine. Oh, okay, okay, great, great, great. I'll just do that. So with how does with because usually we integrate Menti in WebEx itself, so then we can just go it. So how will they do it here? So they'll open and poll in that specific thing. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Just I'll just finalize that time.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Sir, I think
Sir, I
we
think
could wait
we
for
could
four
wait
five
for
minutes
four
more
five more
to
minutes
allow
more
all the
to
participants
allow
to
all the
join.
participants to join.
Sure, sure. What we can do in the meantime for the people who are punctual and have joined in. Anyways, that was my plan. So I'll open the floor. I'll do a reverse thing, usually when you ask the questions in the end. I'll start in the reverse. I'll open the floor for anyone to ask any kind of question, be it personal finance, 5, 10 years down, how the life looks post IIT, how is it in RBI, how is my peer group doing, everything. So anything out of the blue you can ask. So this is a freewheeling session till the time we sort of start. And I think that can shape some of the questions I can answer. I think that can shape the conversation also.
Good afternoon, sir. Just a request, can we turn on the chat?
I think for that you'll have to ask, Aman, is it possible
Okay.
to turn on the chat?
So let me see. Just wait a bit.
Yes, sir. I also wanted to ask, as an IITian yourself, how did you manage to get into this path? Like, how did you get into RBI?
So like all India services, be it the civil service side or the regulatory services, the entry path is the common. So you have to give a competitive exam, usually has the same 3 phases, like your prelims, mains, interview. So that is how the thing is there. Even for RBI, we have a separate services board. But again, we have the phase one, which is your prelims, and then we have the phase two, which is your mains, and then you have the interview. So that is the technicalities of how you get into RBI, if that was the question. But if your question is something else, like why I chose and something of that sort, then I can answer that.
Yes, sir. That was my intention. Like, what you answered that, plus what you said that in the end.
Okay, so see, the reason why people choose certain careers is, I think, a lot to do with the kind of upbringing they have and their own personal choices, to be very, very honest. So, like for me, my parents were in service sector, public service sector. So that shaped the factor that yes, I like the kind of life they lived, the kind of responsibilities and job profile they had. So that of course influenced that. And then there were personal factors also. Like for me, the main choice was between choosing public service versus regulatory service. So like going for IAS, IRS versus regulatory service like RBI or NABARD. And to be honest, there was not much to choose. I had pros and cons for both. So like if you go into civil services, you are more in the spotlight. Specifically, if you are in IAS or IPS, you are in the spotlight, you have more of executive responsibility. Whereas in regulatory service, you are more behind the curtains. So you will not be coming into interviews on TV or dealing with 1,000 people a day. So, but for me, that was an advantage because that gives me much more peace of life, gives me a much more better balance in terms of my personal life and the public life. That I don't have to always, because I have batchmates who are IAS officers. For them, that personal versus public line gets blurred. So that call is always there, and that's a personal call. For some people, they relish that. They relish the kind being in the spotlight, being there always. And the same thing varies. So even in civil services, people choose their services based on that. Some of them will be like, no, we need to have IAS because IAS or IPS are the two services where you get to make the decisions, own your decision at a very early age because the hierarchy is such that the moment you're posted as an SGM or a DM, you are responsible for your own district. On the other hand, if you are in, let's say, revenue service or audit and accounts, you are usually working with a hierarchy. So you will have a certain responsibility, but then you have a boss, and that boss will have another boss. So that hierarchy is always there. So that difference is there. So there, the kind of ownership you get to take is much lower, but at the same time, the kind of headache you have to take or the responsibility you have to take is also different. So it's a trade-off which everyone makes a call. So for me, that was the same trade-off. Like I personally did not wanted a life which had too much of my public life being dictating my personal life. And at the same time, I did not wanted political interference. So with civil services, political interference is just too much. So for me, that was a major nudge towards regulatory services. But yeah, like at the end of the day, among the broader call of I had to take between corporate versus coming to the government side, it was like, yeah, there it would not have made a difference. So there I would have come to, if not to RBI, I would have maybe joined revenue services. I may have joined audit and accounts. So that is there. And of course, luck plays a major role because it's a competitive exam at the end of the day, that attempt, what clicks for you, those few marks here and there makes the whole difference for your career. So that is of course there. So I think this sort of answers of why RBI also.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your answer.
Sir, I think there's some issue with chat. We can continue our WhatsApp group. Like people can respond, like or give their questions there.
Okay, great. So let's wait for another 3 minutes. Anyone
sir.
else has some question, they can sure fire away. You don't have to worry about the another 3 minutes. We can continue the conversation anyways. I talked to Aman, like that is what my plan was, to have a freewheeling discussion. Because eventually, I think all of you are listening to enough PPTs in your coursework. So I should not bore you on a nice Saturday afternoon with another PPT. Rather, the goal of the whole discussion is to give you a different perspective of like how things look when you just cross like 10 years beyond IIT. I'm no one to tell you what is right, what is wrong. You're all smart people. A lot of you would be in many ways, even in the domain of personal finance, doing better than us 10 years down the line. It is the whole point is here to just tell you what we did, we thought was right. What we did, we thought was not that right. And how we are seeing things in our peer group in the younger cohort. So I have a younger brother who's like 9 years, 8.5 years younger to me. So how I see them managing the finances, how I see they taking the decisions, how they're taking it similar to us, how they're taking it different to us. So it's just a perspective. Nothing right, nothing wrong. Things change too much. So in that way, it's going to continue as a freewheeling session. Anyone at any moment can just ask anything. And I'll take the time to, there will be D2s. So there's no fixed structure or no fixed presentation which I have to cover or slides I have to cover. So it can be, it will be a totally a freewheeling session. I think it's tough for me to
So,
figure out if someone has a question without the chat. I think the raise feature, I think is still working, so people can use that.
yes, so like either they can raise their hand or ask the doubt here itself. Like they've asked him to put the doubt in WhatsApp group. And we'll let
Okay,
you know
okay.
like what are their doubts.
Sure, I think that would be great because yeah, it would be slightly tricky for me to focus on both.
Yes, sir.
Sir, if you allow now, we could actually begin with the session.
Yeah, we can start with the session.
Okay, just a second, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. On behalf of FEBS, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this exclusive webinar on personal finance, a topic that is essential for all of us, yet often overlooked. We are truly honored to have with us Mr. Shobhit Goel, currently serving as Assistant General Manager at the Reserve Bank of India. He is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and has been involved in key policy and research work at the RBI, including contributions to the report on currency and finance 2022-23. His academic and professional journey reflects both excellence and deep commitment to the public service. Today, he'll be sharing practical insights on managing your finances, making smarter investment choices, and building long-term wealth, something we can all benefit from, no matter where we are in our financial journey. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Shobhit Goel. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot for such a rich introduction. So like I was telling, so we'll keep it more like a freewheeling discussion. And I think the finance head from your team had given a really good topic list on which I can cover. And I'll start with that because I'll wait for people to. So I've already shared the Menti link and I've created some polls. I'll create a few polls along the line on the way the session is shaping out. In the meantime, people, if they want to take some time to poll, they can. Like, you can take 5 minutes to start and at the same time wait for some other people to join in. So people can, in the meantime, do the polling, and we'll start with that if everyone is keen on that. Otherwise, we can start with that, and people can, in the meantime, keep on polling, or I can just go through the different polls, and then people can take the time. So, anyone has any like suggestion on how they want to do it?
But I think what you've proposed is fine.
Okay, chalo. So I'll keep I think the Mentimeter is already working and a lot of people have already polled. So great. So I'll start with the discussion then in the meantime. I think that will add a bit more context also for people. So one of the things which I think Aman discussed with me was the money mindset and financial goals. And the question is how your financial habits in 20 shape your 30s. See, the thing is 20s pass on really quick. And you feel you have just started with 20s and suddenly you are at the start of 30s. And another critical thing which happens in your 20s is that there's no one else to guide what decisions you take. This is one of the most independent time because your parents will give you that space because you are earning your own money. So they'll give you the space to spend it on your own. And most of the people would like to do it that way. At the same time, you have 10 different influences to get influence. You have social media today, you have your friends, you have your peer group. So all of them will spend the money in their way. And then you don't have any liabilities as such. Because yes, you may have your liabilities towards your parents, but apart from that, you don't have a family, you don't have kids. So you don't have a set group of liabilities. So the kind of financial decisions you take will have a ramification of how you start at your 30s. When you start with the family, when your financial liabilities will come in. So the picture can vary a lot. So that is why your 20s are more critical. Because beyond 30s, almost everyone has to come down and take the same decisions. But in 20s, you can take very, very different decisions. So there comes that second question of how much you should save, how much you should spend, how much you should sort of invest. And that's again very tricky. So you always have that 50, 30, 20 rule that yes, 50 should go toward your needs, 30 should go towards your wants, 20 should go to your savings. But that is how every thumb rule is. And thumb rule is a broad thing. So why it comes out of that 50, 30, 20 rule comes is in a metro city where most of you would be working, because I can see most of the people have chosen in the Mentimeter as corporate as their immediate plan. So if corporate is your immediate plan, so most of the metro cities where you start working. And there your rent will eat away a large portion of your monthly salary, combined with all the utilities, travel, and everything. So your groceries, your basics, that is where your need goes. And with the rents skyrocketing in cities, in all metro cities, including Bombay, especially Bombay, Gurgaon, and Bangalore, that is your that's something fixed. You can't do much about it. You have to have a basic home. Yes, people that needs and wants, the main issue is that people's need and want get mixed. So what is exactly your need and what is exactly your want? There's no fine line separating that. So for someone, let's say eating out is a need. For someone, that's a want. And how do you define that? How do you separate that? It's very personal. So that is one aspect. So that 50-30-20 rule of what you should give to your needs and what should you give to your wants and how much you should invest, it's very personal. And it also depends on what level of salary you are earning. So saying that 50-30-20 rule is sacrosanct is also not true. Because see, what happens is that the moment you start earning higher and higher, your need portion starts becoming lower and lower. So for someone who is earning 20 lakhs or 15 lakhs a year versus someone who's earning 50 lakhs a year, the needs and the wants change. Because your basic needs remain the same. Having a decent house, having normal groceries, having your utilities, that remains. But then your want becomes a need. So when you're in your peer group, so when you see your peer group, everyone is traveling, let's say by Uber X. So then Uber X is need or a want, then it's tricky. Let's say if everyone is traveling by a local, so then Uber X may be a want that I want to travel by Uber X. But when everyone in your office is traveling by the same thing, it may become a need. Similar with a car. So let's say a lot of people will choose to buy a car because everyone in their peer group is buying one. So that is where it becomes tricky. But the thing which is not tricky is that 20%, the savings and the investments. And why 20%? 20%, I think, is the bare minimum which you should save, to be very, very honest. Because in the start of the career, if in your 20s, you are not able to save that much amount, what happens is you'll have your rainy days. And believe me, they happen. So you'll have your rainy days, you'll have medical emergencies, you may have layoffs, you may have personal choices where you may want to move to a different company because the culture is not that good in your current company. Or let's say you want to make a investment. Let's say you are 30 plus, you want to make an investment, you want to buy a house. So that 20-30% of the down payment which you need. So that is what your savings are. And I think the even more critical part about the savings, apart from all the finance, I always say is your mental state. So having those bucket of some amount of money stored away in any form, be it equities, be it debt, be it FD being saving amount, is that psychological advantage you have that yes, I have certain amount of money saved. And that makes a hell lot of difference. And that saving thing is not just there for money, even it's there for leaves. A lot of you will be joining companies, you'll have a set amount of leaves, and then you'll have leaves which accrue. So I know my batchmates, I know my peer group who use all their leaves in the year. So if they're getting 15, like we get 15 leaves to use in a year and 30 which can be accumulated. So there are people who use 45 out of that 45, they'll use 35-40. And what happens when you use 35-40 is that year, of course, you feel great. You can travel, you can do everything you want, you can just stay lazy days, you can go visit home. But what happens is that over years, you don't have any leaves accumulated. Vis-a-vis someone who, let's say, takes 20 leaves in a year and accumulates 25. So over 4 years, they have 100 leave kind of war chest, which is there. And what that war chest does, it changes your mentality. It changes your mentality in the sense that, okay, if things go to very worse, let's say you have some medical issue, you're not getting along in the team, then you can utilize those 100 leaves. Even if you don't utilize, it gives you a confidence that, yes, okay, I have that leave balance. If my boss is troubling me too much, or if my health is not supporting, I'll take those 40 leaves and take the break. And same is with money. Like all of you, I think all of you can even relate. Today, all of you would have some mandatory attendance, let's say 75%. There would be someone who will be just keeping it at 75. At the end of the semester, they don't have a leeway to relax. But someone who is keeping it at 90 has that leeway to relax. And that psychologically helps a lot. How much you want to save, it's still a personal choice. And why I say it's a personal choice is because even for me, it's very confounding. Even I have discussions that why do people spend so much on, let's say, Zomato, on Blinkit, on concerts, on cabs, and at times on cosmetics, on their clothes. And at times it's very confounding. But that is how things are. And there's a reasoning sort of I found for that. Just one quick question. So is everyone able to see all the polls which I've created? Because I am able to see people polling only for one question.
So after the first poll, it's saying that we're waiting for the presenter to change the slide.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So I think then I'll present it and I'll change the slide also. Just a second. So which is a question which you have polled for? Because I think the numbering is different here.
So the corporate government sector, the future plans one.
Okay, okay. So I'll put that in. That actually is a really good place to start. Let me just share this. I think there's some issue with the chat, and because of that, I can't share the multimeter. So I'll just share my screen from here. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir, it is.
Present. So yeah. So as I was saying, so for people with different plans, so that is what I'm seeing. Most of the people have said for them the immediate plan is to be in corporate, with some saying government sector, startup, few are opting for higher studies. See, that itself shows why your personal finance journey would be very different, because your earnings would be different, your expenditure would be different, your long term, the kind of stabilities you'll get, the kind of safety nets you'll have will be very different. So let's say so that's why I cannot give you a thumb rule. So someone who is in corporate, they will be maybe earning at a different pace. They may have a different work hours. They may have different safety nets. So someone in government sector may have lower salary per se, but they'll have a lot of safety nets and they'll have a lot of perks, which covers some of their luxuries. On the other hand, someone who is in a startup, who's doing the startup, they of course understand that initial years you'll not have any cash to burn, or the cash to burn which you'll get will be tied to your funding rounds. But then you are building towards a long-term wealth, so you are not that worried if you're saving the money or not, if you're investing it in some place or not, because you're investing in sort of yourself. So then you understand, yes, if at 35 my startup takes off, I'll be set for life because my net worth will be defined by my startup. So that's why there was no set rule. But the 50-30-20 rule comes from the fact that, yes, everyone needs a rainy day. And that rainy day basket will be different. So let someone who's in government sector, they may be well off by even saving 30% because they don't have to worry that much about their healthcare. But someone who's in corporate, and similarly, someone in government sector doesn't have to worry that much about getting laid off. But someone who's in corporate, they have to have a higher portion being devoted to their rainy day fund, their savings and investments. So when I see plans after 10 years, I think most of the people are planning to continue where they are, corporate, government sector. But a lot of people are planning to join a startup. So, and very much interesting. So that is what happens. So everyone I can, some people who have voted differently, I would want to hear from them. So someone who has voted not to have a startup immediately, but plans to have a startup after 10 years, I would want to hear from them. Why have they voted in that way? So anyone can just
Sir, actually, immediately after college, nobody wants to take that sort of risk by getting into a startup.
okay, fair enough. Anyone else has something to add?
Sir, I would likely like to learn how to manage my finances before getting into a startup. Like that is actually at a bigger level of managing more important finances. So the basics of them, I would wish to learn and have the experience in it.
Fair enough. Anyone else? Because I think these summarize why a lot of people want to do, not immediately go for a startup and then go later. So exactly. So just moving beyond the personal finance domain also, I do see a lot of value of not jumping into a startup immediately. In terms of it gives you some amount of time to learn a skill set, because when you go into a corporate or a government setup, you first get to see the world, where there are problems, what kind of situations are there. Because yes, in college also you learn a lot in the world, but the corporate world or the government world, or for that matter, when you're in a job, you are already solving 10 problems, and that is where you end up realizing, okay, there are the gaps. Second, it gives you a more maturity also in terms that yes, your finances are slightly more stable, and you yourself by as a person has matured. So then you can have a better control over your own finances and your company's finances. So that is there. But of course, there is the other counterparty also. Like if you are young, you can take your risk more. So there, okay, of course, for someone who is planning to do a startup after, let's say, 10 years, the same rule becomes even more important, that not only you need to learn how to manage your finances, but you need to have a rainy day bucket. Because the moment you will start with a startup, you will need to have that war chest to help you survive that initial 2, 3, 4 years till the time your startup takes off. And if it doesn't take off, because of course it's one in 100 kind of things a startup is successful, so that 5, 4 years you can survive and then come back to corporate and then maybe start again. So that is why it's very much important. So now this is more interesting, like coming to how the financial habits are. Like the 50-30-20 rules is very easy to say, but I want to see how often do people use the payment methods, because that links to some of the other things. So most of the people have said UPI as the most preferred ones. Cash is the second, and credit and debit cards are understandably third and fourth, because given the demographics which is there. But I think broadly the pattern which I'm seeing is that is what it will remain. So now again, I'll open the floor to whoever has anyone, like even if they're whatever you have voted. So why have you voted UPI more towards the higher side? Why is cash somewhere in the middle? And why your cards are on the lower side?
The UPI has become the norm and it is quite convenient as compared to the other methods.
Okay, very, very fair enough. And credit card, I can understand a lot of you won't be eligible for a credit card. So understandably, that's low. But any other point if anyone wants to add for credit, like credit card being especially very,
I
very
think
low?
credit card usage is not required for us also, because if we credit something, we are in loan type of things. I think so. People don't choose credit card over UPI cash and debit card systems. Means we can
Amazing. Yeah, you were saying something.
buy something with credit card in with less of money, but in long term things we have to pay more and more, and we cannot good enough in finance if we using the credit card. So I think credit card is not used by more people.
So I think like my decision of not giving a presentation, you have justified that within the first 10 minutes itself. So I think all of you know the basics of why you should not use a credit card at what age. And that is perfectly fine. But I'll tell you how the story changes. So what happens is the moment you're in your 25s and in your 30s, you will see everyone around you carrying a flashy credit card. And the goal becomes like, I have this stock variant, I have Dynas Black, I have Infinia, I have Atlas. And how credit card starts becoming lucrative is that they will build you some really nice bespoke offers. Like you have your lounge access is very common today. So almost every good debit and credit card will offer. Then they'll give you bespoke things like you can upgrade your economy class to business class tickets, or you can get some vouchers to stay in Taj, ITC. So all the premium cards carry all these benefits combined with the reward structure and everything. And to be very honest, it becomes very, very lucrative. The one part of the credit card usage, like the problem you have all correctly identified, that at your age, you should not be using a credit product because you are not having a very stable source of income. So that is the problem, which I think people in late 25s, it's very tough to teach them. You being the smarter lot and seeing it more from the theoretical perspective understands it. But the moment you will enter 25s, I think the numbers will change. Because then you no longer think about the credit card being a theoretical instrument where you're taking a loan. It becomes a method of payment. And then you're like, okay, what if I can earn credit card points? What if I can earn a voucher with that? Well and good, but I'll tell you where the problem comes in. So I'll tell you from a banker's perspective, like when I talk to a bank and when I'm regulating and supervising their books, how do I look at a credit card? So from a banker's perspective, it's a very different thing. So banks will push a credit card only when they can make money out of it. And how will you make, see, it's a game. Someone has to pay for the benefits you're using. So who is going to pay? So a usual model, if you have read about it, is something known as MDR, merchant discount rate. So for every transaction, the merchant pays 1 or 2%, and they have to pay that to the company, for that matter, Visa, and that 2% effectively pays for all the benefits you get in a card. Apart from that, the bank also puts some part of the bill because they are paying that interest for you for that 45 days, which they're carrying free. And then what the bank wants to establish from that is, coming to the CIBIL Wala score, is see how good you are with your payments. Are you someone who will conform to the rules, who will abide by the rules, who will respect the rules? Or are you someone who's reckless? So with the credit card product, that is what they're trying to evaluate. So if you are someone who pays their installments on time, they understand that, yes, you are someone who manages their finances well, who will pay the installments on time, who will not do a fraud, who will not run away. And so later on, when they have to give you a housing loan, they can see, okay, so you are carrying a credit card for 10 years, you have been on time, your address is static, you are not a high-risk customer. So yes, we can give you a housing loan also, or we can give you a commercial loan also. This is the one aspect of why a credit card is important for banks and for you. The second aspect is that most of the people on which a credit card is pushed, or those who take a credit card, are the ones who should not take a credit card. And what I mean by that is people who are earning, let's say 60,000 will have a credit card which has a limit of 1.5 lakhs, which they will use to buy an iPhone, which costs 80,000. Why? Because with a credit card, they feel, yes, okay, we have bought a credit card. Now every credit card comes with an EMI offer. So then they view it like this, that yes, iPhone is not $80,000 rupee purchase. It's just a 6,000 a month purchase. Or let's say even it's a 4,000 a month purchase, which I have paid for 2 years. Suddenly for someone who's earning 60,000, that 3,000 or 4,000 a month doesn't seem much. And they'll take the credit card, they'll make that purchase, and they'll be happy. Now the problem here comes in is that the bank is happy with this kind of customer because that is where they're earning the money. For that 70,000 rupees iPhone, they'll make a EMI which will end up costing you maybe 90,000. So the bank is really, really happy. But for the person here comes a major problem. See, you broke it down into 3,000 rupee a month kind of a thing which you can do. But see, 3,000 a month, you are already committing to a phone. Let's say tomorrow you want to buy some other things. Let's say you want to put it on travel, you want to put it on some fancy clothing, some cosmetics, some giftings, and it doesn't remain at 70,000. Suddenly that year-old bill becomes 2 lakhs, for which you are paying an effective EMI of, let's say, closer to 7 or 8,000. And suddenly out of 60 or 70,000, you are just putting 11,000 or 12,000 there. You know what is worse from a psychological point? When people after 4, 5, 6 or 10 months or after 1.5 years, their iPhone is no longer working and you still have to pay that EMI. So that is where your credit card becomes a dangerous option. Yet you don't realize, you don't do that mental calculation that no, it's 90,000. Should I afford 90,000 rupee worth gadget when I'm earning 70 or 60,000? That is where your credit cards makes it problematic. Now I'll give you a counter view, because this is sort of my view as an regulator, as a banker, that people should not be doing it. As a policy maker, for me, it's very scary when I see people with lower salaries, people with 30,000 salaries. Like I have a friend who works in IDFC. He was telling me 30% of your consumer durables, their book, is just iPhone. And people with salaries as low as 25,000 are buying an iPhone. Whereas people who are earning lakhs, maybe closer to 2 lakhs, don't have an iPhone. They'll be carrying a 15, 20,000 phone. Now, again, comes the needs and the wants. So why do you think someone who's earning 2 lakhs, and for that, I'll give you personal, I myself don't own an iPhone. I'm carrying a relatively basic phone. Whereas I travel in Uber, Ola, and I see people using iPhones. So I'll again open the floor so that none of you sort of falls asleep. Why do you think that happens? Why do people with 25,000 or 30,000 salary buy an iPhone, whereas someone who's earning 1.5, 2 lakhs doesn't buy? Why do you think that happens?
The people who have earning 25K, they have to show off that they are rich enough to spend the money. But people who are already earning 2 lakhs, they don't need to show off anyone to that, yeah, I am earning that much money. Then know that around people is know that he is earning that much. And they know what is need to him and what is not need. So then they don't spend that much money for iPhone, I think so.
Perfect answer. Like, I think makes
Hello.
sense to not have EPDs again. Yeah, someone else was also
Hello.
contributing. Yeah. Yeah. Hi.
So what I think that someone earning less amount of money, मतलब जो less कमा रहा है उसके पास टाइम ज्यादा है, तो वो टाइम वेस्ट करने की जगह फोन यूज करेगा. और समवन अर्निंग मोर मनी, उसके पास टाइम कम है तो वो फोन कम यूज करेगा. इसलिए जो लेस कमा रहा है उसको फोन ज्यादा नीड है, इसलिए वो आईफोन बाय करता है फॉर मोर फीचर्स एंड मोर फंक्शनैलिटी. और समवन अर्निंग अराउंड 2 लाख, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, उसके पास टाइम कम है तो फोन कम यूज करते हैं. इसलिए वो फोन सस्ता ले लेता है.
Very interesting. Again, a very interesting point. Like that was the second point. So the first point is very true. And I was reading a psychologist analysis. So something they call as affordable luxuries. So someone who is earning, let's say 30,000 cannot afford the big luxuries in life. See, someone who is earning 20, 30,000 in today's world specifically, when you have so much social media, you see your celebrities, you see people with fancy cars, fancy houses. He cannot afford, let's say, a house worth 1 CR. But he also has certain desires. He also wants to, a part of it is showing off. He also wants to show that he has made it into the world. He also wants to afford certain things he never thought he can afford. So what is affordable right now? Not that car which is worth 20 lakhs, not that house which is worth 1 CR or 5 CR, or if you are in Gurgaon, 40 CR, camellias and all, but that iPhone which is worth 75,000. So for him, it's a want which he can fulfill. So that is why I said that 50, 30, 20 rule sounds very good on paper. Like on paper, I know everyone, all of you have a perfect understanding. But things become messy when you are in the real world. And then having the same basics is very tough. So someone who is coming in, when you have your parents who have, let's say, from lower middle class, who have not seen that kind of thing. So same comes with, I think I'll move to the next question also.
Sir, I just had to ask something.
Yeah, sure.
Like, sir, we talked about people with low income, the low income group actually to have some affordable luxuries. They're actually, let's say, buying iPhones. But isn't this thing relative? A person earning 1 lakh or 2 lakh is way less than a person earning, let's say, 40, 50 lakhs. So affordable luxuries for them would be different as compared to the ones on the lower income group. So aren't all of us trapped? The thing is just where the luxuries for us have been changing. For them, it's something else. For us, it's something else. And I just wish to ask one more thing, sir. And just want to know your point of view on like whether you feel that buy now, pay later concept is a trap or a convenience.
Okay, so I'll answer both the questions. So coming to the first question, yeah, that's true. See, everyone is in a trap, to be honest. There's no one who is not in a trap. And that's very well, like at a philosophical level, that's so very well put. See, someone like Mukesh Ambani is also working overtime to earn more money. Someone like Elon Musk is not satisfied with what they have, and everyone is running the trap. And I'll be very, very honest. I have batchmates whose net worth is astoundingly high. I have batchmates who are just starting exploring something. Everyone is running in a trap. So the question, yes, of course, the kind of luxuries you start falling, the trap, it changes. You remain a mice, the trap changes. For someone like at 30,000, the trap is that iPhone. For someone at, let's say, an annual monthly salary of 2 lakhs, that trap is Audi car, which is again maybe, or the trap is a foreign vacation. Because again, 3 times your salary, 4 times your salary. So the traps change. Someone who is at maybe earning 1 CR a year, for him, the trap becomes that camellia is flat. So the traps, of course, change. The question was like, see, there will always be people who will not think in that way. There will always be people who will be earning 30 and they'll be saving 25. I literally know people, I know the staff around me who are earning 25 and they send 15 to their homes. Similarly, I know people who are earning 2 lakhs and they're saving 1.5. The whole point is comes into the impulsive spending. Why do people make certain things? Are these traps? Are these not? Again, a good question. Are these traps? Are these not? I have the counter view. For people who are spending, the simple view is you have just one life. Why not spend the money? Why not buy things which give you happiness? The end goal of money is to get happiness. So why not buy certain things? Like for someone who is earning 50,000, 60,000, and someone who's earning 2 lakhs, that person who's earning 2 lakhs is also going to a very fine dining restaurant and spending 10,000. For someone who's earning 50,000 is maybe ordering an Zomato for 500 rupees. I'll be very honest, 10,000 rupees fine dining also doesn't improve your health ridiculously or is a one in a lifetime. It is an experience, of course. But so is for someone who has not eaten out to order in from Zomato. The main question which comes is to have that balance. So for everyone to have that balance, that is why like I asked you the question, how often do you use the payment method? So when everyone said UPI, the issue with using UPI is like, I think main benefit people have already said it's a trap. It's added benefits, lounge access, easy loan, never used. So next come the next question. Why do you use Zomato, Blinkit, Zepto? One of the reason why a lot of people use Zomato, Blinkit, Zepto is the first thing is the luxury. It's a luxury. Today, having someone deliver food at your home is something. How many of you have seen Three Idiots? So they remember the scene where Amir Khan's character was Chotu, who used to get bread, butter, and all these things. Effectively, what is Zomato, Blinkit, Zepto today? It's a Chotu. And today, you don't have to be a multi-millionaire to own a Chotu. You can have 100 rupees to have someone deliver at your food step. So the convenience is there. But what happens is that the moment you get used to that thing, the convenience with UPI, I actually suggested it to a lot of my friends that you stop using UPI and you start paying by cash for your Zomato, Zepto. And the amount of orders you are doing through Zomato and Zepto, it will reduce, because what happens is, see the UI. It is one click. You don't see what they have made, how much they are charging. You just swipe, you enter a PIN, and the things are at your door. The moment you have one more friction, let's say you have to pay by card or even pay by cash. Let's say you have to pay by card. Then you'll have to enter your 6-digit number. You have to enter the PIN. Then the OTP will come. It will say that, yes, you're spending this much amount of money. And then a thought will come into your mind. Let's say you are ordering something for 600 rupees, a pizza and some deals. Then that thought will come to your mind. Do you really need that 600? Do you really need to spend that 600 rupees? Or can you make something at home? The question comes there, that impulsive spending. Why that impulsive spending comes is because everyone around you has made that thing. Coming back to the second question, I think I lost track of what was the second question. The buy now, pay later. You want my personal opinion? It's horrible. It's extremely horrible. And that was my professional opinion also. Luckily, I was working as an EA to my executive director, who was part of the committee who was seeing fintechs and this buy now, pay later. And this is what I told him very bluntly, very frankly. So this is something which needs to be regulated and needs to be regulated highly. Because the problem what is happening is that they're not transparent. I have never used a buy now, pay later, because they will say it's a 0 AMI, then they'll have that processing fee and all those things and a monthly subscription fee which you need to pay. And then how the model works is, let's say you have bought something for 1,000 rupees. Then they'll put it as a 10-month EMI. And every month you have to pay a subscription fee because you are still using the facility. And let's say next month you make another purchase for 1,000 rupees. Now that next 1,000 will get distributed over the next 10 months. So now the 11th month also you can't close the app. And then they'll say it's a zero cost EMI, but it's not zero cost because they are effectively taking that 50 rupee subscription model. So for me, my personal advice to everyone, and that is also the professional advice which we are doing at RBI, is to use a product like, if you would have every card is now supposed to give something known as MITC, most important terms and condition. Why was that introduced? It came from the same discussion that the products are so complicated today, and the banks offer products in a 100-page kind of agreement that you don't know what you are buying, what you're getting into. And that is more scary. I am okay, like the credit card I would recommend everyone to purchase, everyone to use, is the product which has the simplest features. This is the discussion, and that is how the banks eventually make money out of you. They'll have such a complicated product that after a few months of using, you yourself will lose track of how the product works, what were the benefits, what were the charges. And that is the same problem with all this buy now, pay later, because they're not transparent. That's why in that way, UPI is much more transparent, because you know the money is going in and you have paid it. Same with the UPI. I'll tell you, a lot of complaints which I receive both in my personal and professional capacity is with mandates. So any service you use today will have these mandates where, let's say you are buying a thing, let's say you are buying some subscription, every month the money will keep deducting. And you won't realize some really people 40, 45, 50, 60 years of age who are very smart managing their finances, they will reach out or they'll file a complaint saying, sir, हमारे account से महीने का 200 रुपए कट रहा है, and we don't know. Because at some point of time, they subscribe to some service which took a mandate and every month it's deducting, or their children took some service, their kids took some service. So the one thing I say to everyone is use a simpler financial product. Use a finance product which you understand. If you don't use it. If you can't understand what the product is, what the terms are, don't use it. Simple as that. So that comes to that. Now, coming back to the Zomato, Blinkit, Zepto, I think very interesting. So coming on the time shortage, and someone said saves time shortage. I'll expand on that. I think someone's background noise is there. So can they just mute themselves? That would be great. Otherwise, we are all in for a nice, interesting conversation. So that's also fine. So about saves time, convenience, and discount. So all these things I'll time down. I remember, Dipender's some podcast or something was there where he says that I don't really give a discount, and that's true. You will find LinkedIn, Facebook today filled with things where the amount of money or time which you save on Zepto or on Zomato and Blinkit is actually negative. You'll find things cheaper if you go outside. You will find things faster if you go to a nearby store, because I'll literally have to spend time what to buy, then see 5 products, see which one is good, add to my cart, then add another thing. In the meantime, the first thing is out of stock. If I literally go to a store nearby, I'll save it on, I'll get it done within 10 minutes. Yes, travel, of course, it takes time. So rather than laziness, it's like I'll say other comfort at home is, of course, there. It's there in metro cities. So now, even in credit card, I've already expanded on why the CIBIL thing it works and why it may make sense to use a credit card, but not till the time your finances are in shape, till the time you understand what a credit card is for you. If you need a credit card, then don't take a credit card. Only take a credit card when you don't need it. That is, I think, simple one-word liner. By what I mean is, if you have enough money to pay your credit card dues on the first day your bill is generated, and you're going to do that, only then take a credit card. If you're using a credit card because you feel that, okay, it can help you pay for something you don't have money today, don't. I remember seeing some credit cards ad which was saying, okay, I'll get the money in a month. My salary will come by the end of the month. Let me buy something today. If that is your situation, no, the credit card is not for you. And just realize why they are doing an ad. The bank is doing an ad because those are the customers they'll make most of money out from. So that's why I'm never a fan of credit card as a product. It makes sense for people, like personally, I have 1 or 2 credit cards. If you want, I'll even share the credit cards which I use towards the end of the session. And the reason why I use those credit cards, they are the most simple credit cards which I could find on market. Not much complicated terms, simple terms. And I can afford to pay it on the day the bill is due. Most of them are tied to my saving accounts, get auto debited. My account has more than enough balance to cover the credit card. So for me, yes, then it makes sense. because I can get some of the benefits, whatever cashback or lounge which is there. And it helps create a CIBIL score for me if someday I want to take a loan. So then, of course, it makes sense. But if you're using it just to enjoy the credit, don't.
So like, as you mentioned, increasing CIBIL score, like 10 years down the lane, if I want to take a home loan or a car loan, I should have a good CIBIL score. And you're saying like in the early ages, one should avoid credit card. So at what age one should start using credit card? Like it is not that easy to increase CIBIL score. So what would you suggest on that?
See, your CIBIL score gets created in 3 years, to be very honest. It doesn't take 10 years to create your CIBIL score. I'll share a personal anecdote. I started using a credit card, I think in 2019 or 20, I got my first credit card. Even though I started earning since 2018, for first 2 years, I didn't have a credit card. So you can create your CIBIL score. See, CIBIL is nothing. It's just a reflection of how well you are as a customer, as a someone who's taken a debt. Are you paying it on time, and secondly, how much debt you are in? The reason why I say a student should not have a credit card is, see, there's no single answer. My brother has a credit card, even though he's a student. The reason he has a credit card is because he can afford to pay. Because even if he does not have money, that credit card would be paid by me. So in that case, it is fine. But the problem with his credit card is that as a student, the amount of credit limit you will get would be much lower. So it will be just 50,000 on 1 lakh. And let's say you bought something on 30,000 or 40,000 on that, and you are hitting your credit limit. That also is a negative impact of your CIBIL. Your CIBIL just does not just see how frequently you pay or how long your duration it. It sees how on time you are on, how much credit you are using. If you are using your whole limit of credit card, then you are a bad customer to the bank, because then the bank sees that you are in debt. You are always in debt. You are always using credit and then paying off. For them, you are a risky customer. So, but when ideally should start using, it depends on your personal. It's a personal calculation. That's why the topic is personal finance. If your parents can pay off your credit card, if they are okay with you adding your credit card to their account, then you can have a credit card even when you are 21. Because then even if you're paying by UPI or by credit card, doesn't make a difference. Because see, the money you are spending is already there in some saving account. And plastic versus UPI versus credit card, the same thing is there. You'll be spending the money. The ease is almost similar. The only difference is credit card will have a bigger limit. UPI, maybe you are just carrying 10,000 rupees in your wallet, in your UPI account. So whenever you are hitting 7, 8, 9,000, you can't go beyond that. So if your personal discipline is there, if someone is there, or you can pay your bills on time, if you're carrying enough cash to pay the credit card bill on the first date itself, then you can use credit card. But if you don't have, and that can be till the time. So even if you are a startup, if you are 35 also, but you don't have a stable income, don't have a credit card. So the when to have a credit card will depend on these 3 metrics. Can you afford to pay it on first day? Are you disciplined with your card? Like disciplined with your expenses, how much you should spend, when you should pay, and how much credit limit is being offered to you, how much of that you're going to use it. When all 3 parameters are satisfied, have a credit card. No harm in that. So
Yes, sir.
I hope
that answers
I
my
answered
questions.
that. Anything else you want to ask? Anyone wants to ask? Because I'll want to take a 10-second, 20-second break. Well, I'll be shifting to another domain, which is the investment part. So if anyone wants to ask more towards on the spending, we can discuss now.
Sir, hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Sir, how UPI works for free? UPI mechanism of working, because it's work on internet. So how it is working for free? Whereas other payments like what taking commission etc.
Okay. So this is a more technical question, but I'll try to explain it in as simple terms as possible. So UPI, first of all, is not free. It is free for the consumer. it also has a cost involved. And because I supervise banks, and every bank I go for a supervisory thing, or every meeting we have, every bank has the same complaint that UPI is a cost for them. So where is the UPI cost? So one is the cost which NPCI charges for enabling the transaction, because the transaction gets routed through NPCI, which is a bank-owned RBI seen body. The second charge is that every bank needs to invest in their infrastructure. So there is a service provider which handles the switch, which then talks with the banking system, what we call the core banking system, CBS. So that switch talks with the NPC on one hand, it talks with your bank on the other hand, because in UPI, you're spending the money which you're having in your saving account. So that software fetches how much money you have in your account. Then it says that, yes, this transaction needs to be done. So it posts that transaction to your bank account. So there a cost is involved. It varies from bank to bank. So it can be 10 paise for some bank, it can be 15 paise for some bank, it can be 20 paise for some bank. So it varies based on a lot of things. So it varies on what kind of transaction volume you are running, what kind of contracts you are running. And then the third part, which is there, is the message which you get. So every message you get after UPI, the bank has to incur a cost to send that message to you. So on and on, a UPI transaction costs a bank somewhere from 30 paise to 1 rupee. And you won't believe, I was just talking to a bank's MD yesterday, and he was like, yeah, sir, you won't realize how irritating it is when we see transactions of 2 rupees, 1 rupee, 3 rupees, कि वो 3 रुपए भेजने के लिए मेरे बैंक का 60 पैसे लग गया है. So it is not like someone is bearing the cost, and banks right now are bearing the cost because RBI has regulated them and made it mandatory for them to bear the cost. Why a credit card is more expensive is because the cost is still there. So similar structure is there in credit card also. You have a credit card switch, you have a company, but credit card has something known as your MDR, which I briefly talked about earlier. So MDR is nothing but a merchant discount rate. Simply, it means that if you pay whoever you are paying through that machine, through the credit card, or even online through that portal. So let's say you are paying them 100. So their bank won't pay them 100. They'll just get 99 or 98 rupees. And on top of that, that merchant will be keeping that money in their current account. So current account is basically all the account where a merchant, all collections, all the money which they get through cards comes in. They make the payments also through that. But the beauty of that account is, or what you can say, the ugliness of that account is, the bank doesn't pay you any interest on that. So banks earn money on that current account. So that's why they are able to give you all the benefits from using a credit card. So I hope it answers the question.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay. Now, so having discussed of what shapes your consumption, your expenses, let's say now you have saved a certain amount. And as you have discussed, like I told, that certain amount will vary for each person. Now, how do you go about saving it? Then again comes, you have so many options. So I think we have already done with this. So I think I've opened this. So take on crypto assets. Is everyone able to vote for this? Yeah, so So I see someone who's heavily invested. Two people have a minor investment. Few are exploring, and a lot of people are saying it's all a bubble. So I think just 16 have voted. So we'll wait for some other time because I want to see the trend for this. I'm actually interested in seeing the trend of this question. And it will also give me a good chance to see how many people have chosen off. So maybe we can wake them up also. To be honest, like the result till now is surprising for me because I thought with the younger cohort, the number would be very different. So someone who has said heavily invested, I want to actually hear from that person first because they are right now in the minority. So whoever clicked heavily invested or whoever is still planning to click on that heavily invested, I want to hear from them.
Sir, I have a take on this crypto assets. Like they're highly vulnerable. Like you can even saw that example of FTX, the scam took happen that take place and everything. Like they're highly volatile. They can go around like even a single tweet of that Elon Musk can change their way. So I think they are not as a safe option for investing.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. So, but yeah, that's why. So that's a perfect answer of why people say it's a bubble. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing intrinsic behind them. So everything which you buy, so there is a concept of intrinsic value and the actual market value. Intrinsic value is the underlying, the real value. A lot of assets don't have, but a lot of assets do have. So like when you're talking about a company, so the intrinsic value behind that company is all the assets, all the skill set, all the employees or the patents, all the know-how, processing, brand they own. So when you buy a share of a company, you are buying a share in that. Effectively, the share means effectively that you're buying a share in that company. So that company has some intrinsic value. So there you have an interest. When you are in equities, there it has some intrinsic value. Similarly, when you buy land, land has some intrinsic value because you can use that land as an asset to create housing. You can use it for farming. So it has, but crypto doesn't have an intrinsic value. Even for that matter, gold doesn't have intrinsic value. Initially, gold used to have intrinsic value because it was used in certain places because of its noble nature. But beyond that, it stopped having a intrinsic value. And the part of it being speculative, yes. So when you don't have an intrinsic value, it becomes more speculative because something which has an intrinsic value, your value usually doesn't go very much below the intrinsic value. Another reason why it is more susceptible to all this speculative news is the amount of free float. So what is happening in crypto essentially is that you had certain early miners who are holding very large sum of crypto. So recently there was this news that one of the dormant wallets became active and they sold some 40,000 Bitcoins. So these were some early adopters of crypto. They may be some college student sitting in some university who holds 40,000 Bitcoins. And he is just sitting there. Some of them may have even forgotten. So we have all these news and all these stories of people trying to buy out whole cities, buying the municipal waste authorities because they lost the hard disk on which the crypto was there. Now, what happens is when some of these people enter the market, they will suddenly dump the shares, like they'll dump the 10,000 Bitcoins. And because the market is so shallow that your prices will go up and down so much. The other factor comes from the intrinsic value. When there's no intrinsic value, someone, let's say like Elon Musk, who is more crypto aficionado, he'll say something, it will shift that value. But the same thing can't happen for, let's say, in equity, let's say, a company like Reliance. Let's say someone, Elon Musk says Reliance is a crap company, but it has a lot of assets. It has a lot of assets. It has a lot of cash which is sitting on there and all those things. So its value cannot go down. So the more less of an intrinsic value and more of a hype or more of a speculation it would be, more volatile it would be. But I still want to hear from someone who has said that they have a minor investment and they are heavily invested. Or what is their point? Like, what is their hypothesis? Because see, there is nothing right or wrong. To be very honest, from 19 to 24, crypto has more than 50, has grown 15 times Bitcoin price. So yeah, someone is raising their hand. So I want to hear from them.
No, sir, I actually had a question. I just wish to ask, like,
Yeah.
we sometimes explain cryptocurrencies as inflation hedges, and then we also see the prices fluctuating so much suddenly. So, I mean, how do you explain this paradox?
Okay. So do you see the header on the slide? It takes crypto assets, not currencies. So that is my first, like, as a regulator, both personally and professionally, first of all, I don't accept that crypto is a currency. For me, they are an asset, they are not a currency. And I'll tell you, someone some few years back said a very basic line that if someone has to sell you or has to tell them the benefits of of owning it, then it's no longer a currency. If you have a debate whether it is useful or not, it's no longer currency. Let's say if someone says, I'll give you 500 rupee note, okay, you'll very well accept it. You will accept it for anything. If you are being given 500 rupees, it can be food, it can be gold, it can be crypto, you will take that 500 rupees. But crypto, not everyone will accept. So first of all, it's not at all a currency, it's an asset. And the reason why they had said it to be an inflation hedge was a simple thing, comes from the monetary theory, that what happens is, let's say you are in a closed environment. This whole world is a closed environment. You can produce a set amount of goods in real world, what I called about the intrinsic value. So let's say this is a group of 60 odd, 65, 70 odd people. And we all have set amount of resources, set amount of labor, capital, and we can all produce certain amount of goods. We have played that as a game, so you can all produce certain amount of goods and all which is there. Now, what happens is that money is effectively a lubricant to help make that transactions happen. We need to understand how money came. So let's say there was a farmer. Now a farmer has a cow. And let's say on the other hand, you have a cobbler who makes shoes. Now the farmer needs shoes and the cobbler needs to have milk. Or for that matter, let's say he owns a hen also. So now the cobbler needs to eat chicken and he wants to get his shoe. Now the problem which comes is, how do you set the exchange rate? Now the farmer may say that the shoes are only worth 1/3 the chicken. So he's not going to cut that chicken into 1/3 and give it to this cobbler for that shoes. Now, so that is where your money comes in. Your money is effectively nothing, that everything in that economy is marked to that money, that let's say the chicken is worth 300 rupees, your shoes are worth maybe 200 rupees, that shoe repair is worth 50 rupees. So it's a common ledger. That's why in the note also it's written that a promise to pay. So you are promising the person that, see, I'm giving you a slip that you have given me the goods today, and I promise that I'll pay you back. So this is how your currency started. So now anyone can print this promissory note, and then the kings in that earlier times had to fund everything. So they came up with the concept of shifting it to gold, because gold was tough to mine, very rare. So they shifted to gold standard, that, okay, the king has a control, he'll mine the control, whatever gold will be there would be the kings, will be the kingdoms, and everyone would be paid by gold. The main advantage of gold was it was rare. So not everyone can mine it wherever they want. It was durable. So it is not like I'm carrying currency and 5 days later it is no longer there. So let's say you put something else as a currency. Let's say you put grain as a currency. 1 year later, वो rice wheat सब खराब हो जाएगा, gold नहीं होगा. It carries the value, it is rare, that is why your gold came. But then what happened is that the gold standard was going on, then came the advent of paper currency. People said, no, gold is too much of a cumbersome. Secondly, we are running out of gold. And why should every transaction be hedged around gold? So what was the way around? You went back to the concept of paper currency. So you said, you don't need to give me gold. I'm giving you, so the gold, the first banks, the first central banks came it in this way. So let's say you have your gold, you give me the gold and I give you a note. So let's say you deposit 10 grams of gold. I gave you a note saying, with my stamp, with my signature saying that this slip is worth 10 grams of gold. So now you go to someone else and you say, I want to buy a ship. So instead of giving them the gold and they carrying that gold, logging it all the way, you just give them this note, say, see, my gold is stored there with that bank. You give them this note, which is issued by them, and they'll give you the gold, and you give me this ship. So this is how your central banks initially started. Within a few years, everyone realized that no, the central banks cannot be independently operated. The government needs to have a control, because this is the sovereign's, what you call the sovereign's duty, to print currency, to manage the finances. Because the moment you make them private, then what will happen is they can run their own parallel economy and they will be the ones controlling. Whoever controls the money eventually wins. So that is where the thing is. So then they come under the government's control. But then came another problem. So now the central bank is under the government's control. Now the government has the gold. The whole economy's gold is there. Now let's say came a new leader. He wants to make everyone happy. So he says, I'll give everyone 10,000 rupees. And he tells the central bank, okay, you print the currency. You print these notes, promissory notes. The central bank, whoever is managing, will say, no, sir, we have only set amount of gold. We cannot print more currency. But the overall elected leader or the monarch, he is very strong. He insists you print it out. And that is what exactly happened. So in 1945, after the World War ended, you had the Bretton Woods conference. The gold standard was fixed. So US was the big daddy of the whole global economics. So everyone said that you will follow gold standard and we will peg our currencies to gold. But then US said, okay, no. Subsequently, 5 years down the line, the subsequent presidents in US, they said, no, we'll need to fund Europe. We need to fund our own lifestyle. So we'll print more money. Eventually, that led to a collapse of the gold standard. Because you were printing lot many dollars and you didn't have enough gold to back that. And that led to a collapse of gold standard. Today, your every note no longer carries that promise that you can get gold in lieu of your currency. So even if you come to RBI and say you don't want this 10 rupee note or you don't want a 100 rupee note, we'll not give you gold. We'll just give you coins. So the problem with that, what happened is the moment there's no longer backing of the gold, you can print as much as you want. And then came these problems that when people are printing, like the central bank, let's say now wants to make everyone happy. So they say, the government says to the central bank, okay, you print more money, you give that money to me, and I distribute it among people. What will temporarily happen is people will be happy with that money. So everyone, let's say I distribute a currency note to everyone, let's say 1,000 rupee. Everyone is happy. Everyone will go out and spend that money. So someone will buy some cosmetics, someone will buy some confectionery items. So first 10 minutes, everyone is happy. Then what happens is you realize that the amount of production, so the real goods which are being produced in the economy are the same. It is not like overnight new factories have come up or new manufacturing facilities have come up or new services have come up. You have the same number of barbers, you have the same number of chocolate. So let's say you all 10 people of you get that 1,000 rupees and you say, okay, let's go to a cinema to watch a movie. Now that cinema has only, let's say 10 seats and 100 of you go. So start building up. because you don't have no longer, you may have more money in your hand. You have that promissory note, which is more in your hand. But the number of seats in that car or in that cinema is fixed. So what will you start doing? You'll start bidding up the price. You'll say, नहीं, मैं 10 नहीं, मैं 11 रुपए देने को तैयार हूं, मेरे को जाने दो अंदर. So that is where your inflation creeps in. So you printed more money, everyone wanted to spend. That initial first round, everyone was happy, people went out to spend. It gave a boost to your economy. So let's say earlier people did not have money. So now they have money, so they'll go out to spend. But after some time, what will happen is the production remains the same. You keep on printing more money and you have something known as inflation. So there's again that fine balance. You can print slightly more. You can use your monetary policy to kickstart your economy. But if you do it too much, your economy will overheat. Then everyone is just outbidding themselves. So out of this whole thought came your cryptocurrency, the Satoshi Nakamoto's thought, because it came when the central banks were printing too much money. Pre your GFC, post your GFC, when the thought came ki no, central banks are the ones who have created all this issue. The banks are the ones who created all this issue. So they said ki no, cryptocurrency Bitcoin can only be minted up to a certain amount. Now, because the overall number is fixed, it is an inflation hedge. You cannot print more. Actually, it will be deflationary. How it is deflationary is that your production will keep on improving. So let's say in 2010, you could produce 1 lakh iPhones, but today Apple is producing 10 lakh iPhones. But Bitcoin's number is constant. It is not increasing. So that is why Bitcoin has become a deflationary thing. It has become an inflation hedge. So that is why it was called an inflation hedge, because of the simple protocol that the number of total Bitcoin is limited. The number of things which are produced are increasing, but the total number of Bitcoin is constant. So that's why it was supposed to be an inflation hedge, which are normal currencies which central banks like RBI produce, they are not, because they will keep on increasing. That is the way the currency works. So it was a long detour, but I hope I was able to explain a bit of it, of why crypto is an inflation hedge.
Yes, sir. Absolutely got it.
So that's why I don't call cryptocurrency. It's an asset. So for me, crypto is no longer a currency, it's an asset. And like any asset, it is speculative. So for me, crypto is as good as buying a painting or any rare wine or rare watches. For those who are heavily invested, very good for them, because people invest in watches and it has given really great returns. But at the same time, yes, people who are saying that it's a bubble, they are also right. Because we have seen examples of crypto assets being bubbles. Like we have had all kind of bubbles. We had the financial bubble in East Asian bubble in 1997. We had the tulip mania in 1600s, where your tulips became overnightly expensive in Netherlands. So your one tulip could buy a house, one tulip bulb could buy a house in Netherlands in 1600s. So whether it's bubble, whether it's the crypto proponents say, no, it's a new form of purchasing, gold is outdated, your economy is becoming much more volatile, you cannot rely on those things. But of course, there are so many counter views. My take is, if you understand crypto well, if you know how to trade really well, again, as with any financial product, if you know it really well, you can trade really well, okay, you can take your investment. But if you are not, for you it's a speculative bubble, please stay away. There is no force on investing in crypto, like the same way there's no force on anyone of you to buy a particularly rare wines, or to buy an island, or to buy rare watches. Same way, there is no, like, you'll not miss out. There are so many asset classes. Crypto is one of them. Yes, it can become 100x of what it is today. Even from 2019, it has become closer to 8 or 10x. It can become 10x going forward also. It can crash to zero also. If you understand the risk dynamics, you can take the risk. Your financial profile allows you to take a risk. then you can either trade or you can invest. If not, then you are not missing out. So now coming to the second thing, similar to crypto, coming to FNO. So again, the early trends are most of the people are saying it's exploring, it's all a bubble. And we have one or two people who are who have some form of investment. And just take what was the final take on it remained at that. So I'll open the question. I'll ask one simple question for people who are saying like what separates why FNO is treated separately from equities? Like what makes it different? Specifically from those who have said it's a bubble. Why is FNO a bubble according to you? Like why is it speculative? Well, with it's a bubble, I meant it's a speculative thing. So anyone, if they have some views. Okay. Sure, no. I think you have been very active by that thing. So I just so the major problem with FNO is that it's a zero-sum game. And what a zero-sum game is that if someone is making money, someone has to lose money. And that is where your major problem with FNO comes in. So FNO, the main reason why people get attracted to FNO because FNO has something known as leverage. So with FNO, what you can do is, let's say you have 10 rupees, you can take a bet of 100 rupees, which can earn you profits or losses in the tunes of thousands, which is possible. So that you can take a 10x leverage and then you can make a 10 times profit on that, which is not allowed in equities. In equities, you have to buy with cash. So let's say you have to buy HDFC Bank. So HDFC Bank share is currently around 1500. So if you have to buy 100 shares, so you have to spend 1.5 lakh rupees. And then let's say HDFC share goes up by 2%. So you will make what? 1.5 lakh at 2%. That is all you will make, some 3,000 rupees. Now, your stock brokers will give you margin call, margin, leverages, whatever you want to call it, it's one and the same. What effectively they say is that you buy the stock and you pay only a certain amount. So let's say you want to take an exposure in HDFC. And now as you realize, now you expect HDFC to go up because, okay, you feel that it has some really great results coming in. Or let's say for that matter, you view key, okay, you are a trader, you plot some chart and you feel, okay, it's bound to go up by 2%. Here, after putting in 1.5 lakh rupees, you are earning just 3,000. If you are normal equity cash, you're doing. So one option is to take a leverage in your cash, in your equity segment itself. And instead of spending with that 1.5 lakh rupees, buying 1.5 lakh rupees share, with that margin call with your broker, which provides, you are able to take an exposure 5 times. So now you have an exposure of 7.5 lakhs and you can earn, if it goes up, your profit also goes by 5 times. So now you can earn 15,000 rupees. Sounds better, of course. Yeah. Now, where is the downfall? The downfall here is that you have taken a margin from the leverage, from the broker. Now, let's say your HDFC Bank share, instead of going up 2%, comes down by 1%. In a normal equity segment, you would have a loss of 1,500 rupees. Here, your loss compounds, it becomes 5x, so it becomes 1,500 into 5. And another problem is because you are doing it on margin, so if you're doing it on cash, so the money you have, you can carry that stock. So let's say even if the HDFC code went down by 1% today, but you feel no, it's a good stock to own, you carry it for 15 days, 20 days, and maybe after 20 days, it goes up by 3%. But you can't do similar things when you're doing on margin because those are borrowed funds. So you have to, your margin calls will come and all these things come. So you are effectively shifting from an investor perspective to a trader perspective. That I feel it will go up in a short time. That's why I'm doing a trade and I'm not investing. Now come to FNO. Now what FNO effectively does is you say, I want to take a bet. For me, it's a bet. And the bet is it will go up by 2%. And you say, I don't want to buy shares, HDFC. I just want to take a bet. It will go up by 2%. And there are people who want to take a counter bet. So they can be your speculators, people like you who want to take a bet, or they can also be people who are doing it for hedging. So what hedging is, let's say I am some person who is a mutual fund and who wants to buy a large amount of mutual HDFC shares, but I'm at the same time worried that it may crash because of some news results or something. So I have bought a corresponding position. So I have bought a put on HDFC so that if it crashes by 5 or 10%, I can sort of balance out my losses using that put strategy. Similarly, you have trading firms who are running very sophisticated strategies based on futures plus calls. So you may have all heard about Jane Street and all those things. So the advantage of future and options, why people come in, is because at 1,000 rupees with that leverage and the way the futures and options are priced, you can earn super normal profits. But the problem again is that you can make super normal losses also. And then comes the second difference between a trader and an investor. So why FNO is more dangerous and why SEBI has come down heavily, mandated all brokers to not invest in FNO is because see, what is an investor? When you are investing, Buffett always says that if you invest, whatever investment you are, see that you are, start thinking in terms that you are an owner. Would you like to own that business? So let's say you buy equity shares of anything. So if you buy equity shares of HDFC, even if you buy one share, you have an ownership in that bank. So if the bank does well over years, your share of that ownership grows. So it's not a zero-sum game. So you bought it, you felt that this business is doing well. So you bought a share in that. And if that business does well, it prospers, it earns more revenues, over time you'll make money. But trading is not that. Trading is you take a bet. You take a bet. Your window is much smaller. Your window can be 5 minutes, it can be 5 hours, or it can be 5 days, but your window is much smaller. You are not concerned of what will happen to the business in the long run. You are not an owner. You are a trader. You are trading. What does a trader do? A trader buys something, sells something. So you are buying HDFC because you feel that price will go up. You are not worried what is the underlying business, if the business exists or not. You are a trader. You are buying something with the perspective कि इसका भाव बढ़ेगा. Okay. And if it goes well, you make money. If it does not, you lose. And that is how a trader versus investor anyhow works in all segments, not just in your share market, but everywhere. So a trader, even if you go to your stores around you, the Banya, the trader shop, what they are doing, they're not making the product. They are not selling, they are not using the product. They have just bought the product from the manufacturer in the hope or in their calculation that people in the market will want to buy this product at a higher prices. So let's say you are Parle G, you are manufacturing the product at 5 rupee, but the trader feels that for the same biscuit packet, someone in the market will be ready to pay them 7 rupees. So they buy at 5, sell it at 7, 2 is what they're earning. So that is your trader. What a F&O person is doing is saying, okay, this is there for 6 rupees. I am betting whether it will go up by 7 or 1. And then they are making bets. So you can have a bet with the person sitting next to you saying that, okay, the trader has bought it for 5. Will this price remain at 5 or it will go 6 or 7? So that's why it's much more speculative and that's why it's much more dangerous. Equities is not that you win, someone has to lose. You win, the person sitting next to you can win and everyone can win, because if that whole company prospers, if that whole economy prospers, everyone is better off. Everyone who's part of that economy, everyone who's part of that company is better off. But in F&O, if you are winning, someone is losing. And that is where it's even more tricky, especially for young people out there, that you'll be lured by that fancy returns, but then you're competing against hedge funds. So I know I have friends who are working with hedge funds, who are working with investment banks, and they're taking F&O positions. And believe me, they are using much better resources. They are working as teams. They have so much of money. Like if you have read about the Jane Street, the whole scandal which happens, they can manipulate the market. They are the ones who are moving the market. So if you have to do well in F&O, you have to beat those people. You have to beat your own alumni, your peers who have been short picked by those companies, by the best investment banks, by the best trade companies, by the best quant companies, where they are having access to 10 Bloomberg terminals, all the best resources. They are dealing as a team. They have access to thousands of crore rupees. If you feel you can beat them, good, you can do that. Or if you feel that you would have been selected in those firms and you would have done enormous profits. Now you want to quit and do the same thing for your own. Then F&O is for you. If you don't do it. It's the same thing. If you feel that, see, it's very easy to commentate saying, यार, KR Rahul ने चौका क्यों नहीं मारा? शुभमन गिल ने इस बॉल को कट क्यों नहीं किया? But I'll be very honest, जब 150 की बॉल पे आएगी ना, that हिलेगा भी नहीं. And that is what will happen. If you feel you have that kind of talent, where you can be the next Shubman Gill or next Yashasvi Jaiswal, Gill, Vaibhav Suryavanshi, go out. You can make millions. And I'll be very honest, you can make millions. You can make millions being part of the investment firm, or even if you have your own proprietary funds and you're doing on your own capital, you can make millions. But there are very few people who can make those millions. Rest, everyone, when that 150-degree pace ball will come, you'll break your bones. For the people who can, you should. But those are that 1 in 1,000 people. Rest all, you should not. That is a basic understanding. So if someone has a minor investment, they understand it really well. Really well. Now coming on equity. What's your take on equity? Some
पुलाव कभी चलाता कर
So here I see some marked difference that the number of people saying it's a bubble is much lower. Most of the people are exploring and others have a minor investment. So, and I think this is the trend which will continue more or less. So equities, as I've already told, is much different than F&O. F&O and equities, though the same broker will offer you, they are entirely different products. Though you will see the same call, put option and your futures on the same stocks, They are entirely different products. But in equity, the question which comes is like almost everyone will say equity is good for you. You should all invest in equities. The question comes how to. Some will say you have AIF, some will say mutual funds, some will say invest in an index, some will say do it on your own. I'll share you my take. And this is not a standard kind of thing. Everyone chooses their own way, and rightly so, because that is what my final discussion would be. So, first of all, the question is, should you invest in equities on your own, or should you call an advisor? So one is, so who should invest on equities on your own? First of all, if you're investing on equities, again, you face the same problems. You are again competing with people who have a much better knowledge, though it's not a zero-sum game. But let's say you are trying to see your returns vis-a-vis, just a second, I think I'll need to plug in. I'll take a small break for 10 seconds. I'll plug in my system and then I'll continue. In the meantime, if someone has a question, I'll start with that and then I'll continue on this.
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Hello, yeah, hi.
Hi, my question is that for somebody who's beginner, the investing in equities, stocks, and gold bonds, this is going to be very new for them. So, suppose if they want to go through some kind of a middleman or some kind of a broker, or these days there are many websites and apps that can do for you, like Grow and Zerodha and all of that stuff. So, how do we justify or how do we find that which app or which website or which broker suits for us, especially when you are a newbie in all of these things?
Okay. So again, so I'll separate it out into two or three things. One is your platform, which includes mainly your broker or their app. Word of advice is whenever you are starting fresh, or even for those people who are seasoned, stick with the popular alternatives. Don't go like, of course, I don't want to sort of crush someone dreams who's planning to start something new, and they're start planning to start like, I am not against startups or anything, but see, when you are asking someone to manage your finances, because the amount of fake apps which are there, all these with zero cost brokerage, with really great trading advice and all those things, the number of scams which are there are also very large. I would suggest, if you are choosing the platform or the middleman to choose, stick with the ones which have a more established reputation, be it Zerodha, Grow, or be it HDFC, ICICI Securities, and all these places. Because see, you want your money to be safe, first of all, and you want a platform which is reliable. Second, now coming back to the question of whether should you invest on your own or should you let a mutual fund investor see. I think I'll post another question here, because that would be interesting. I want to actually see. So I'll put another question and let's see what people have to say about that. So I add these two questions specifically when I'm answering about equities because that will help you decide and frame your reference. So before answering, I would want people to answer this question. Can you beat a mutual fund investor? So you have mutual funds. Do you think you can beat the returns they are generating? So I see a lot of yes, a lot of maybes. So anyone who's answered yes, can they explain their viewpoint? Because I'll come back to the question which was asked of how to go about it. But I want to actually hear from people who are saying yes and from those who are saying maybe. If someone wants to expand on their view, otherwise I'll sort of share my peer group's view. So coming to yes. So a lot of people think they can beat, but there comes the three questions. First question is, can you really beat? There comes the bias. So how the bias comes in, let's say you invest in 10 stocks. Okay. Your two stocks have given you enormous returns, became 3x in a year. Okay, and you are very happy. My two stock, like you feel that you are a really good equity picker because three of your stocks became 2x or 3x in the same time. But what about your rest of the 7 stocks? Because you took 10 bets. So overall, your 7 stocks are not doing well. Now someone will say, no, we are more financially savvy. We'll see what has been our overall return. So then they'll say, okay, we invested 10K in each and our overall return is, let's say 15%. And now you're happy that, yeah, you were able to generate 15% return. Then comes the second question. What was the time frame? Did you generate the 15% return in a year or in 3 years? If you generated in 3 years, your annual rate was just 4 or 5%, whereas your mutual fund investor would have done the same, given you a 10-12% return in a single year. Third comes the context. See, in a market which is in bull run, everyone's stocks will double. You can pick, वो कहते हैं ना घोड़ा गधा एक बराबर. You pick up any 10 stocks, out of that 5 or 6 will quadruple. But not only your stocks have done well, but other stocks have also done well. Here comes the third factor, the relative context. If you got 15, what did the average mutual fund investor get? Did he get 20 or did he get 10? Fourth option is the time, where again people sort of falter. You will get really good returns, let's say in a year, but can you do that consistently for 5 years or 10 years? And that effectively is again the reason of how you should pick a mutual fund also. You should not look at absolute return. You should look at, first of all, annual CAGR returns. Then you should look at how those returns were for 10 years, not just in immediate period. How did you do well? Because one, in bull period, okay, you did really well because you were really aggressive or your bets came off really well. But what about in a 10-year time frame? Will you still do better than a mutual fund in a 10-year time frame? Because there would be times where would be the low cycles and up cycles. There comes the concept of the rolling returns. that whenever you are evaluating any of your returns, and even a mutual fund investor, first of all, you should not see point-to-point returns. You should see CAGR, which is cumulative returns, the CAGR returns, which take into account your time factor. Secondly, you should compare them to a benchmark. So like you are comparing your returns, your mutual fund returns should also be compared to a benchmark. So if you're investing in large cap, the suitable benchmark for you would be a large cap mutual fund. For a mutual fund, the benchmark would be the index or the average returns of the large cap. Fourth is see over time, see the rolling returns. How have the returns done over 10 years, 15 years? Now, let's say you are among the rare, really good equity analyst who has beaten a mutual fund across all time. And believe me, you can beat. There's nothing you can't beat, because to be very, very honest, when I see mutual fund people managing mutual funds, there are your peers, and at times there are people who would be less smarter than you. There would be your average folks from some MBA, some tier 2, tier 3 college MBA, or even tier 1 college MBA. So it's not that they're the smartest kid in the room. You may be the smartest kid and you may very well beat them. Because specifically when I'm sitting in an IIT, I cannot say you cannot beat them. You can and you will. A lot of you will beat. A lot of you may end up becoming mutual fund investors only. Then the question comes is, even if you can beat, do you have the time? Do you have the consistency? Because see, for them, there it's a full-time job. They will meet with the company owners. They will meet. They will be full-time invested with the for the whole job. They'll be reading so many company reports. You will have so many things in your life to take care apart from just investing money. The second thing which comes is, even if you have an inherent edge, that let's say, for example, I'll talk personally about myself. I feel that I have an inherent edge in terms of picking up sectors, like this sector is going to do well, or in terms of doing valuations, that I can do a better value pick. But see, they are dealing with a much better infrastructure. They have a team where they can push their ideas with each other. They have access to so many CEOs, so many founders, so many industry specialists, so many reports, which you'll not have. So yes, it sounds very lucrative. Even me and a lot of my friends have done the same mistake of not investing via mutual funds, thinking we can do better. But what happens is that discipline does not come. So that discipline with the mutual funds, that discipline sort of comes in, you can relax in your life. And with that, I'll come to the next question also. What is the expected return in equity market? Because a lot of us have a false sense, are not really in tune with what we should get. So we feel that we can make great deals and all those things. If we are dealing on our own, we'll find some hidden gems, we'll quadruple our money or make it 10 times, but that doesn't happen. You have a false sense of our own skills, the amount of time you can give, okay, and even how markets deal. Like this is something I see specifically with the younger investors who have not seen different cycles of the market when the crashes happen. They only see the bull market. So their expectation is we can earn 20%. Like all of you have given more or less the ideal returns. But for them, the expected returns is more than 30, 35%. In reality, Nifty, the total returns index, like which includes all your dividends. So we were doing some analysis. So Nifty has given you a return of 11%. Nifty next 50 is around 13%. Nifty 500 is around 12%. So all your indices, your broad indices, are between 11 to 13%. Mid cap and small cap are slightly better at 14%, but nothing in long run. In average, the average rolling return, the 5-year average rolling return, the average 3-year rolling return has exceeded that 15% range. Some mutual funds, some strategies, active versus passive, have beaten that. So that is where your alpha comes in. Different categories have different alphas. So like personally, I feel that mid cap and small cap mutual funds do tend to outperform. So your indices, your broad indices, because simple fact, in, let's say, mid cap and small cap space, fund manager has 250 companies in just small cap, and if it's mid cap added, so they have some close to 400 companies to invest. And the companies are from very different sectors. Their fund working style is very different. Their growth prospect is very different. But in large caps, especially Nifty 50, you have just 50 companies. You don't have much space. Everyone in that mutual fund will be owning 30 out of those 50. So no one can have abnormal returns. But in out of 400, so what 40 companies one mutual fund will pick versus what other will pick will be very different. So there, the role of manager is much more. So there you get those returns of that 15 to 20% which someone highlighted. So there you start getting those average return of 15, 16, 17% in long run. In long run, there is hardly any mutual fund which will give you more than 20 or 20%. The upper cap is somewhere on 20% in terms of the CAGR returns. Now coming to the question, what's your take on FD? It seems to be a very financially aware audience I'm talking to, because usually the discussion I have with most people, they'll be like, FDs is no longer something which we are looking at. And to some extent, because we are running out of time, so to some extent, I understand that view, like why people say that FD is something which they are no longer interested in, because first of all, the returns are abysmal, 7.5%. Then you are taxed around 30% on your FD, whereas in equities, if you invest, taxation is just 10%, 12.5% on LTCG, with 1.25 lakhs of returns being exempt also. So from the return and the effective return, FDs doesn't make sense. And they don't. To be very, very honest, FD is not something which will help you compound your wealth. But it still makes sense. Like it makes sense from a psychological perspective. See, I have had my batchmates whose parents are now retiring. So most of my batchmates are in that zone whose parents are now retiring. So we have had this discussion of what to do with the kind of money they get. Should we put in equities or should we suggest them to put in FDs? See, at the end of the goal, though the title of the presentation was personal finance, money is not the end of the world. I'll be very, very honest. It is a great place to start. It is something which is very necessary in your life, but it's not the end of the world. Literally, when I was talking about FNO, I have 2 or 3 of my friends who themselves are working with hedge funds, and they are trading, they are traders, or they are someone who are building strategies for the hedge funds, but they themselves don't do an FNO. And we have had discussions among ourselves. So why they don't do FNO on their own? I remember one of my batchmates telling me, he's a very close friend of mine. He said, I had that thought that if I'm making so much money with my strategies for my hedge fund, why should I not do it on my own? He said, I tried it for a month. I took positions, 20, 50,000 worth of positions, made some profit also. But the whole day I was glued to the screen. So I was making strategies, and at the same time I was running my own strategy on that. And I was glued to the screen. Once I left my position open for overnight, I made a loss. Then every day in the evening, my main worry used to be, have I closed the positions or not? So saying the amount of money I made through FNO didn't make any sense. And the amount of money also I was making was much lower than I was making for my company, because here I did not have people to check my model. I did not have people to close out my positions. I could not take those amount of dedicated bets or the large kind of strategies I could do with the company money I have. I can't run half the trades which I can. But the main point was the mental peace factor. Why people take FD? Because that mental peace is there. And I'll be very honest, having money is great. That compounding is great. But in that hard time, from where I started having that saving, that bucket, that rainy day bucket is equally important. And that is why for the parents, most of the discussion center around no, let them have their FD, because they are in that year when they are no longer actively earning and they are dependent on the resources they have. So for them, having that fixed income through that quarterly payout is much more important than compound. And the same holds true for, I think, everyone, all of you also. So if you feel that, okay, I need some stability. I don't have some security behind me. I don't have a government job. I don't have parents who are well off. Maybe FD is an option you can consider. You can put some amount of money every month you are saving, maybe just 20, 25%, 30%. Put it in an FD, let it grow over time. You can get 5.5%, 6%. You'll beat the inflation. But what will happen over time is that you'll have a rainy day bucket. And it's something you don't have to worry. It's not like, okay, COVID is there. The markets have crashed. The job has gone. What do I do? Because even a prudent strategy always say mix equity and debt, because they are not correlated. Yes, FD is not your debt, but at the same time, it doesn't lose value. So that aspect also is very good, because most of the time when your equity will crash, will also be a time when you'll have an overall downturn in economy. That will be the very time when you'll be needing the money. That will be the very time you are at risk of losing your job. You are at the risk of a startup going under. So you need that safety day. And for others, like for people who feel like, no, we don't have a mindset for having equities. Yes, you can invest even up to 60 or 70% of your amount also. No harm in that. Same goes with real estate. People buy real estate not because it gives you the highest return. And to be very, very honest, it feels very great when our parents talk about कि हमने वो चीज एक plot खरीदा था, वो तब लाख का था, अब करोड़ का हो गया. But those multiple grew over time. It took 30 years, 40 years. 40 years equity also will grow. But there is a comfort which comes in FD. Remember, we started with why UPI has less transaction, its ease of doing business. So with equities, that ease is there. You can buy it very quickly. But at the same time, you can sell it also very quickly. With land, that doesn't happen. If you buy it, you are invested for 20 years. And that is where the power of compounding comes in. It will grow double, let's say, in 6-7 years in equity. But it will become 4 times in the next 8-7 years. It will become 8 times in the next 7 years. That compounding happens. Why people make investment in land, it seems to do that well, is because you made a lump sum investment at one point of time. And it grew, compounded over so many years because you did not sell it. And that's why it feels so great. And then it has a psychological value also. It has a psychological value because people in 30-35 want to have their own house where they don't have to bother of changing the place every 2-3 years. They don't have to bother of being asked to vacate by the landlord. It comes with its own social status. It comes with its own luxury of having that parking spot, of having some say in the society where you are living, whatever, it's an independent house or whatever, the people around you give you that respect. So all of that also matters. Money is not the end of the story. So all of that matters. So when you're talking about FD and land, it's not just that you have to talk in terms of investment. Yes, equities may be a better investment option because they are transparent, there is low transaction cost, but then they have their own incentives. Because of the very high transaction cost in themselves, they are very much more, you are less likely to exit them. You are less likely to panic and sell them just whenever the stock prices crashes by 10%. And same way, they have an intrinsic value. So let's say your economy goes down, you lose your job, you still have a house, so you still have a roof over your head. That is not something which your equities can provide that very well, because they may be going through the same cycle. So this is something for every one of you to answer. And what's your standalone? This is last 2 questions for everyone to answer. This can be a good metric of how you want to save money, how you want to spend money. So you can answer on your own free time. And in the meantime, I'll open it up for questions. So you can answer, we'll have the results popping up. So if anyone who has some question can ask in the meantime. So if anyone has any other question also apart from the finance thing, you're also free to ask, because post the Q&A, we'll be ending the session. So if you have any kind of questions, personal finance is just one topic, and I think we have discussed enough. So apart from that, also, if you have any questions, you're free to ask. This should open this also. Yeah, so the last 2 questions are for everyone to just think about. What's their average expected salary by 30? Of course, I'm excluding people who are planning to have their own startup, because the usual financial journey will not be valid for them. And what's the standalone net worth? So standalone net worth effectively means that how much you own. So it does not include your debt, does not include whatever your family has given to you. So this has a different scale, of course. This has a scale multiplied by 10. The reason why this question are important is it helps to give perspective. So if you are by 10 years amount, whatever salary you are expecting, that will give you some perspective of how your career should evolve. And at the same time, it gives you either a boosting perspective or a grounding perspective. Because let's say you are expecting your salary to be 2 CR by the time you're 30 in present day terms, but you feel that, okay, the 2 CR is not your salary. Then what happens is you'll end up spending much more, assuming you'll have a lot more money coming your way later. And if that doesn't happen, you end up in a bad position. Similarly is the average net worth. So if you are expecting your net worth to be about some particular thing, then it can help you plan that, okay, by 30, I expect to, let's say, have a net worth of 1 CR. That means effectively you have to save certain amount of money, and then it has to grow at a certain pace. And that helps you plan. That helps you plan in how much you should save, how much you should invest, how that net worth should look like. So the net worth also varies by composition. Should that 1 CR net worth be because you have bought a house, or should it be because you have a mutual fund? So these questions are important for you to ask, not just today, but I think every 2-3 years you should ask this question, that where do you see yourself in next 10 years or next 5 years? And doing it by a poll, you sort of see what are other people's expectations. That has a very good grounding effect. You may feel that you have not saved enough, and then you may see people around you who have saved even less, and that will give you some satisfaction. Similarly, you may feel that you're doing really, really well, and then it will be an eye opener, because see, your peer group is effectively what's gonna be with you for your whole life, and they're gonna define your take on life. the kind of houses they buy, the kind of cars they buy, the kind of travel they do. So it's good to know where your peer group is thinking and how they're planning. So I think with that, there is this, I think was the last question. This is something I think we can leave it, investment strategy, because I think we already discussed a lot. So if there are no other questions, I think we should, this would be the end of session from my side.
Sir, investing in equity is 20% and in FD is 30%. Is okay type, or we have to invest more in equity and less in FD for better investment purpose?
So answering that question, it depends on your personal goal also. See, if you are investing, if you are someone who can afford to take risk, both financially and mentally. So your risk does not have to be just taken financially, it has to be taken mentally also. If you are okay seeing that your portfolio, whatever you have invested, may go down by 30% because of some crisis, and financially also you can afford that your portfolio crashes by 30% and still you'll be okay and you'll be in a position to actually invest more. Because see, with equities, the main incentive is that you have to buy when the things are cheap, when it's low, when a crash is the best time to buy. So if mentally and financially you can take risk, you can invest 30%, 40% or 50%. But if you can't, then don't. See, there's no one set strategy that this is the right way. If you can afford to take risk, you are in a situation where your family is doing really well, you have a very stable job, your mentality is such that even if you see that 30% risk, you can sleep at night. Because see, eventually what matters most is whether you can sleep at night comfortably or not. Then you can invest 50% also in equities. Within equities also, you can take bets maybe at mid caps instead of just taking in bet at a large cap fund. So your return and that risk trade-off is there. If you can afford to take the risk, go for the returns. But if you can't, it is not just financially, even if you mentally can't take that risk, okay, then you first need to be in a position where you can take a risk. So financially, you have to become more stable, be in a better position before you start investing much more in equities. Mentally, you have to mentally tune yourself to be more comfortable taking a risk. Maybe start slowly, start at 20%. When you are okay seeing your broker's screen showing a single day loss of 10,000, then maybe you are comfortable enough to take that loss to 20,000, 30,000. Similarly, when you are comfortable not opening your mutual fund account, even when the market is down by 20%, you are comfortable not liquidating it, then you can take a bigger position. So you have to build your risk. You have to see what's your risk appetite and build it over time. Otherwise, for someone even who has zero risk appetite, let's say you have very limited revenues, then maybe you should be a 50% in FDs. But if you are very well, you don't have any risk factors, you can handle the risk very well, then you can be even 50% in equities.
Okay, sir. Clear, sir.
Any other question?
If there aren't any more further questions, sir, I think we can end with the session. And
Yeah, I
thanks
think we can end with the session. It's already been around close to more than 2 hours. So thanks, Aman and the rest of the team for inviting me. And it was nice interacting with all of the people. It was a very lively and a very financially aware audience. So good to see that. Makes me really happy to see that the younger cohort is very well financially aware and sort of justifies my decision of not doing a PPT to see everyone give the pitch perfect answers. And I hope everyone continues with this kind of financial awareness 10 years down the line also. But yeah, everyone with personal finance, the first thing of personal finance is personal. Everyone will have their own personal stories to make and to share. So great to meet you all.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the session, and like your approach was very fresh to the online webinars that we usually have. So thanks a lot. It was a very informative session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.